Dr. Safanah,
Hmm.
you're just back from Gaza. I understand there's a ceasefire, so things must be getting kind of back to normal, huh?
Not back to normal. Not back to normal. Definitely better than they have been for a while in that they have maybe a little bit more breathing room, a little bit more, chance to think about how they're rebuilding, but there's still mass casualty events every single day. There are still bombs every single day. The yellow line that the Israeli occupation drew is pushing closer and closer, closing in on the Palestinians there. Um, and, the occupation is demolishing up to the yellow line, and they are effectively destroying evidence, of the destruction they already started up to the yellow line. And still, there's still the ceasefire is not bilateral. The Israel has not ceased firing. There's still bombs. We would hear them every day.
Mhm.
And there's still attacks on Palestinians there in the camps. Um, and but most of my time was in Gaza City, Shifa Hospital, which is more in the north. Shifa Hospital, you might remember, was targeted twice
Mhm.
throughout the course of the escalating genocide. Once was pretty early on in November of 2023, and then once again in March 2024, where they invaded the whole hospital. They bombed, shelled, pushed people out. Hundreds of martyrs there, and still in the mass graves there. And Shifa Hospital 2 years ago was completely shut down. Um, Now they're starting to rebuild it, but it used to be like a 700 bed facility, provided all the specialty care for all of the Gaza Strip. They provided basically all the specialty care that you couldn't get elsewhere. Shifa Hospital was the referral center, and it's a public hospital. So it would, it would catch the largest amount of patients. It was, state of the art institution, all the facilities, all the, for my area as a cardiologist, cardiac catheterization lab, cardiac surgery, everything, you would expect in a modern hospital, pretty much here you would be able to find there. And that is despite, over decades, an intense blockade on the Gaza Strip since 2007. So Shifa Hospital rose to be a regional referral center, really state of the art, despite the blockades from 2007. Um, and so to see it all destroyed, to see the facilities destroyed and how there is really heartbreaking, for one, just really such a shame on, as on again, this is a crime against humanity, but also just a shame as uh, a medical doctor with a strong academic background. It's a shame on the field of medicine as well to be able to destroy something that was providing such essential care to patients.
Mhm.
Period. And also that was a leading institution in doing so in the region. It's such a shame. So they were completely shut down while the Israeli military was invading, but they have started rebuilding, and that is despite all the hardship that the doctors there have gone through. The hospital leadership also have been imprisoned, interrogated, uh, but they're back out working, taking care of patients, and really making a plan of how they're rebuilding. And they have much of their facilities that much of their the things that they offer, the care they offer, they've kind of outsourced to other buildings in the area, other hospitals in the area that are kind of consolidating. Um, and a lot of the care they're offering is intense. The medical ward for males is intense. So they're the patients that are staying intense in the 90-degree heat to get their medical care. But including all that, they have brought it back up to 350 beds. And they have plans for, rebuilding the emergency room, which is now currently being housed in, I think, a former clinic building. and they have plans for rebuilding the cardiac cath lab. And they, showed me pictures. They showed walked me through it, and I've seen pictures of what it looked like before. And they've, done enormous work on planning the rebuilding the healthcare infrastructure, and that is, despite the ongoing really terrible blockade on Gaza right now, where they're not allowing medical supplies into the degree that they need, let alone we heard about the food blockade. We heard about the famine that has since improved, though we still see results, the impacts of that today. There's still an ongoing blockade of medical equipment. So they're letting a few doctors in every week, but not the medical equipment that these doctors need to be able to provide the appropriate care they need for the patients.
How are the people in Gaza rebuilding? I mean, where's the workers coming from? Where's the supplies coming from? Where's the concrete? Where's the steel? Where's the building materials? It's amazing that you're talking about rebuilding. I mean, we know the genocide is continuing to go on. I mean, some of the debris, I guess, was cleared away, and they found over 100 members of a family that had a mass funeral
Yeah.
that had been there. They'd been under the rubble for 2 years, something
Hmm.
awful like that. And here you're telling us that they're rebuilding. Now, that sounds like an absolute miracle. How are the people there able to do that?
You have to understand these are people that love life. So that's first of all, um, even as they were rebuilding, they told me that they just, while I was there, they told me just a couple of days ago they had found 7 bodies within, the rubble, within the building that they were rebuilding. They have parts of the hospital that are partially intact, and they're focusing on that. And the Gaza Ministry of Health has decided to focus on a couple of hospitals, Shifa Hospital being one of them, to consolidate their efforts to rebuild. So they don't have nearly enough equipment to be able to rebuild to the degree they need. And they just have chosen to consolidate their efforts so that they're able to rebuild some places and, focusing on key areas. And then the other thing to note is they are not, rebuilding to the magnificence that they once were. So, they're rebuilding as they have got up to 350 beds, as in, how many of those beds are out in the tents. So, but despite that, they love life. They love what they do. Every person I met, even from doctor, nurse, cardiac tech, they love what they do and they're excited to get back to work. So when I went to visit the cath lab that they're rebuilding at Shifa Hospital, the techs that used to work as the techs at Shifa Hospital, 2 of them they were there literally fixing there was a crash cart with drawers. And the drawers, they didn't have the proper compartments to be able to store all the medications. And they were using cardboard to reconstruct the sections of the drawer. And they're cath lab techs. Like, they are trained in doing complex procedures, assisting doctors on complex procedures. So this is not what they were trained to do. They're not, but they are putting in, they're spending their days putting in the effort to do that. Yeah, that's the short answer. I don't know the answer to, how the concrete's coming in, how much coming in. There are some trucks coming in. We saw some food trucks coming in. We know that most of it is going for commercial use rather than for aid. But they are thinking for the long term. So that was one thing I took away from this is, you know, there sometimes we here as we're organizing in the United States, we start to feel really hopeless, and we start seeing the situation there. And even my first thought as we entered into the Gaza Strip, as we were driving through the Rafah region, and you see the destruction, how much is really flattened. Even I got a sense of like, wow, is it possible to rebuild? But then you start to see the work people are doing, and they're not hopeless. They are planning for the long term, and we should be following in their footsteps and planning for the long term, and thinking about what it looks like to support Gaza as they rebuild, what it looks like for a free Gaza, for a free Palestine. Everyone there, every single person there has gone through some hardship. Um, everyone has martyrs in their family. Every single person has, you know, either their home damaged, destroyed. Every single person has been displaced multiple times. Um, some people, they have their homes intact, but only partially intact, and they're just grateful to have a roof over their head. And the doctors and nurses certainly are no exception. A lot of people have spent time in prison. A lot of people have family members who are imprisoned, and they are still showing up to work. Some of them have a smile on their face, some of them don't, but they're still showing up and they're still doing the work.
And there's got to be an attitude, or there's got to be something, some concerning thoughts in the back of everybody's mind that, okay, we're rebuilding, we're clearing this stuff out, we're rebuilding, we're making some progress. And then Israel is still there. They
Yeah.
still got the jets, they still got the bombs. So you get to a point where you've got something good, you got something going, and they just bomb it again. I
Yeah.
mean, that has got to be desperate and frustrating and more.
Or you were in Gaza, was any of the World Cup going on?
Oh, yes. The World Cup was going on, and they would talk about that every day. That was the topic of the morning before we rounded. They would talk and asking
Yeah.
me, "Who do you support? What do you like?" And then they were just, they were very excited about Spain. They would still have gatherings to watch the World
Yeah,
Cup together, and then,
yeah,
and sometimes that's when the bombs would hit them.
huh?
And it's, one of my Palestinian friends there said, like, we love life,
Yeah, right.
we will enjoy the World Cup. We would see weddings.
Mhm.
Almost every day we would hear wedding processions. We would see people would be playing their drums, people would be dancing. Some people were dressed up, some people weren't dressed up. They didn't, whatever they had, they would have
Mhm.
reasons to celebrate. Babies are being born every day. People are being martyred every day, but they're continuing, they're getting married, they're having children, they're celebrating things. The other thing that was really special while I was there is they were celebrating the high school exams.
Mhm.
So it was a Friday, the day that they got the results for their high school exams. And people, were celebrating that. Everybody who had a loved one who passed in the exam would be handing out sweets. Um, Even the day that we went to the tent, somebody gave us sweets to celebrate their daughter got a 97%,
Yeah.
on the high school exam. So it's like a big moment for them because it determines what they do the next step of their life. If they want to be a doctor, if they have a certain grade, they can go to medical school. And so, but they had a big reason to
Well,
celebrate that.
yeah, that's
Despite
yeah,
everything.
just the idea that you can be going through everything they're going through and still be able to be future oriented.
Resilience, just
Amazing.
amazing resilience.
There was one doctor, Dr. Honey, who's an interventional cardiologist, like I am, and he lost 17 of his family members all at once. He was in the hospital, but they bombed his house. They killed his 6 children. They were young, five, maybe 4 or 5 years old, up to like the oldest was a teenager. His sister, her husband, their 6 children, and his parents. So he was at work and when this happened, and all his family is killed. He still hasn't recovered the bodies of all his family members. He recovered some of the bodies of some of his family members, and you can imagine what he saw.
Yeah.
He had to bury them. He wasn't allowed to bury them in a proper place, so he buried them where he could.
Why wasn't
And
he
then
allowed to bury him in a proper
there
place?
was because there was active fire. They were not allowed to move. There was restrictions, so he had to bury them where he could. And then he had to unearth them and rebury them properly where he wanted to.
God. Ah,
That's just so much. That's just too much. That just
And then on top of that, he was interrogated. He was detained and interrogated
mm, mm,
after he lost his
mm.
entire family. And he comes to work every day, you know?
he comes to work every day and he continues to think about life and help people enjoy life. I don't know how
Caring
he
for
could.
patients.
I don't know how he could, but he helps people, other people,
Yeah.
enjoy life and look to the future.
Yeah.
or survive.
Good
Yeah.
Lord. Are you planning to go back?
I hope to go back, and I hope the next time I go back, things are even better, and I hope the conditions are better, and the blockade is lifted, and and they are able to rebuild more, and we're closer to what they deserve. They deserve everything.
Right.
We owe them everything. You know, me
Yeah.
going there was the least, almost feels like the least I could do.
Mhm.
I had the
Yeah.
opportunity, the privilege of having the degree that was needed, and so I had to go, and I feel like I have to go again, and I have to tell people anybody who can go should go, because we like to think like, oh, I'm talking like very positively, like we are talking very much like they are strong people, they're resilient people. But I think when we say that and repeat that to ourselves and repeat that narrative, we forget they're human too.
Mhm.
And it can be dehumanizing to put them on a pedestal and expect that
Mhm.
they don't have the same, torment that we would have in that situation. So just to, yeah, reiterate that, uh, we owe everything to Gaza, so
Yes.
keep doing what you can, um, slowly and surely,
Hmm.
It's not um, it's not a matter of if we will ever make up for the harm that we've caused them, but we have to keep a steady pace and try.
Excellent.